Welcome to Favorite Movie. This is Brian Beck. I'm here with Andy Hoare on another Friday 15 episode. Welcome, everyone. We're just getting into summer here. Labor Day. Oh my gosh. Memorial Day weekend was last week, and we had an eventful week, and we're going to talk about some breaking news. Andy, good to be here with you.
Yeah, was it me or did the band seem to have extra pep in their step there?
Pep in the step. That's right. Yeah, we
I
raised
couldn't hear you actually. They're playing over you, which I don't have a problem with. But
you couldn't hear me. Oh goodness. All right. Well, that's why we had to have them shut off pretty quickly. Anyway, well, guys, welcome to Friday 15. We've got a fantastic, exciting topic we're talking about today. One that has generated a lot of interest. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, our breaking news. Andy, Salesforce strikes an $8 billion deal for Informatica. Wow, quite the news here. This deal is designed to strengthen Salesforce's position in the 150 billion plus data enterprise market. Salesforce said that Informatica's data management tools would help it to establish a unified architecture for, guess what? Agentic AI, which uses reasoning to automatically make decisions and perform tasks. Andy, reactions. What do you think?
There's backstory here. They've been talking for quite some time. This is not something that happened overnight. The final deal did. They talked higher numbers in the past. They pulled the trigger now. There's a whole sort of set of reasons why. I think Mark Benioff, the board, told him to stop buying companies a few years ago. And so he's probably been chomping at the bit to do this. So he finally did it. The interesting story to me is that this is not an integrated solution for them. It's not like, they had a cloud and they wanted to, create a new cloud. This is a bolt on in many ways, but it's for two new areas for them. And you just read them. One is about the agentic AI. They have something called Agentforce, which they're trying to make everything agent based. And Informatica is actually pretty strong in that area. Which is the second point about unified architecture. But the more important one is the first one. They do have something called a data cloud. And the problem with the data cloud is funny enough, it lacks data. So there's a lot of speculation that the reason Salesforce bought these guys was because they needed the data that Informatica has collected over several years to train LLMs.
Interesting.
And I think that's fascinating. In fact, Jason Hine actually had a great line. He put this on LinkedIn. He said, they're suddenly acquiring access to a vast trove of already implemented customer and product data sets. These are not Excel spreadsheets or half-baked CSV dumps. They are well-structured, beautifully boring, enterprise-grade repositories of valuable data. So I think what we just witnessed was Salesforce learning that they need more data to effectively train their LLMs.
It's crazy. Well, thank you, Mr. Borg, for that comment. And that's, to me, this is fascinating. A fascinating evolution. And yet, unlike sort of when they bought Cloud Craze years ago, Andy, where it was fully baked into the solution, they're buying it for other reasons, not simply because it's already built into the CRM. Well, great topic. We could spend a whole day talking just about that.
By the way, another private equity success.
Oh yeah. Was it okay?
They were taken private a couple of years ago, and then the PE firm kind of dressed them up and then brought them back public again. So I guess you could say that was a PE success.
Okay, so PE is good for B2B companies. Okay. We'll see, Andy. Maybe I'll win that argument eventually. All right, our topic today is partner or platform. Which one comes first? Partner, meaning SI, systems integrator, or platform, meaning in this case, we'll talk mostly about e-commerce platforms. When you're a B2B company, you're thinking about a leader thinking about replatforming or for the first time platforming your business, getting into e-commerce, which many B2B companies are still early in their journey here. How should you approach it? And I've done this, Andy, in my life and my career many times. I've as a VP of e-commerce, probably 6 times have either replatformed or put companies into e-commerce for the first time. And this decision is critical because the e-commerce platform decision is expensive. It's time consuming. It takes a lot of resources. It takes your eye off the ball as it relates to other things like growing the business. But it's foundational and it's fundamental. So as you make a decision here, you've got a couple different paths that we'll talk about. The first one is partner first. Now, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of selecting a systems integrator when you want to make this decision, Andy?
Yeah, well, one thing that's of note here is we've had this conversation before. We talked about this 2 years ago, actually, on a webinar.
Right.
And the reason we're talking about this now is because A, people are now talking more about this platform versus partner thing. And B, there has been a not so subtle shift in the thinking. And so that's what we want to talk about. So your question was, hey, why the partner first, right? So there are pros and cons to this. Some of the pros. With a partner, you're creating an experience, which is the highest priority. It's not just about acquiring a technology. You don't just buy the technology and suddenly it all works. There's an argument that you need a strategy first, right? Before you buy technology, before you do anything, what are we doing? Like I always tell companies, 3 years from now, which customers are you going to monopolize and why? And they always look at me like, wait, 3 years from now, I barely know how we do it right now. It's like, yeah, but you're going to build this thing and it's going to be ready in a couple of years. So you're building for the future, not the present. But that starts with a strategy. And the last one, this is not an exhaustive list, but when you use a partner first, you get the benefit of benchmarking and best practices.
Yeah, sure.
Right? If you bring in an SI, and you spoke about this in your post, these people do this all day long. And so they should be able to share with you, oh, we had a similar client in a similar circumstance. This is a mistake they made. Here's a pitfall you want to avoid. If you do this on your own, you got to rely on your own capabilities, which arguably are far more limited than somebody who does this constantly. Okay, so that's the positive side of the argument.
Yep.
The negative side of the argument, which is what we've been hearing a lot more of, hint, is that partners, SIs, exaggerate their platform experience. They might say, oh, sure, we have done commerce tools implementations. Well, how many? Which ones? And what did you do exactly? I think there's a feeling in the market that the SIs will say they do these things and to get the business and then bring you in, and then you discover when you start to do the implementation that, wait a minute, maybe they're not quite as good at this, or maybe they're not a real pro. The next one is, and this is what we heard a lot, is that there's suspicion out there among practitioners that SIs are invested in complexity, meaning running up the bill. I had an interview with Mariano Gomide from vText a few weeks ago. He left the Mock Alliance on these grounds. Other grounds as well, but this is part of what he said, is that the SIs are running the Mock Alliance. They don't want to make it easy. They want to make it hard because they make more money when it's hard. And practitioners may be downhill picking up on this, thinking, why would I choose a partner first if all they're going to do is kind of just keep me on and bring in more people and run up the bill? The last one is, I've heard this before too, is that the SIs are oftentimes the first people on the ground. They're kind of the special forces that arrive early, and you need everything. Yeah. And like I said earlier, strategy. Well, a lot of the practitioners don't trust their strategy work, which they often give away for quote unquote free in order to get the services work down the line. Well, are they cutting corners on the strategy work? Do they really have an expertise in that area? So there's a belief that there's a bias there. But what are your thoughts? You've done this.
Yeah. So I was going to chime in here, Andy. So I've been on both sides of this. I worked at a systems integrator. I ran a strategy practice for about 3 years for a systems integrator. And, this is after almost 20 years about 15 or 16 years as a practitioner, as the VP of eCom at different companies. And it's fascinating to me, Andy, because having seen both sides of this, my go-to historically when I was a VP of eCom was actually partner first. Why would I go to a systems integrator first as a VP of eCom? Well, it's because they could help me with these issues. They might develop on, typically they develop on 3 or 4 or 5 different e-commerce platforms. And presumably they could help me through the step of, here's my requirements, here's my objectives, here's my requirements, here are the things that, that I need out of the system from, at the end of the day, and then help me select the platform that best matches that, those requirements. Right. And so rather than going to a platform that only develops on it's only one platform, right? And I didn't feel like I had necessarily the expertise or even the bandwidth to go through and consider this. So that, consider those different things and make the right decision for the business.
Well,
That all said, right? Yeah, good.
Yeah. No, and presumably too, the SIs, the partners can help you with things like vetting contracts and
Yeah,
pricing.
well, that's
And
it,
there's
right?
a lot of change management associated with this that a vendor's not going to know about.
Right. They're services first, right? And these are technical and strategy. So when I ran the strategic business at an SI, we would do a lot of platform selection work. We would help companies through the process, and which I feel like we added a lot of value. But I will say there is some in the back of your mind, to that last point about don't trust the strategy work. Well, I mean, the back of your mind, you're thinking as you're running this business at an SI, I do want to put them into a platform ultimately that we can then build on top of, because frankly, that's, there's a lot of revenue there for the company. So that bias, even if it's not intentional, still exists in some form. So you have to be mindful of that, which is what's kind of driving, people to potentially use the other approach, which is platform first. Right. So what are some of the advantages and drawbacks here, Andy?
Yeah, thank and we've heard this a bit, and I think this is one of the reasons why this discussion has evolved is because the people doing this work are more advanced digitally. They've
Yeah.
done this 4, 5, 6
The
times
e-com
in some.
effect. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and so many of them told us that, hey, I already know my requirements. I don't need an SI to tell me my requirements are. I can just map the features from a particular vendor right to my requirements. In other words, cut out the middleman because I don't need the middleman anymore.
Right.
I think composability makes this a little more easy to do. And I don't mean literally the composable part. I just mean the modular part that you can pick and choose. You can say, I'm going to get a shopping cart from here. I can get a so-and-so from there. You can kind of shop around and figure these things out yourself. And they claim they don't need an SI. Now, the interesting part is, how do you bring all this stuff together?
Right.
That's a different issue. Now, some of the vendors will promise that it's all as easy as plug and play. And in some cases it is, rarely. Most cases it's not, which means you need an SI, right?
Right.
And the last one on the positive side is that for the platform is, and we've heard this from a lot of people, is that they feel like when they talk directly to the platform, they're getting the best information about the platform. That the SI, however well-intentioned, is working with multiple platforms and probably doesn't know the platforms as well. And this can manifest itself in, oh, I'm looking for this feature. And the SI may have never implemented the feature before.
Right.
And when asked the question, says, yeah, I don't think they have that or not very good at it. And it's only because the SI is ignorant of that, not because the platform doesn't have it. Plus, there's this feeling too that, when you're working directly with the platform, you're getting married to the platform. You're just dating the partner, and you can swap the partner out. You can let them go because you're still going to be stuck with the platform. So if you had to choose, go with the platform because that's the more permanent part of the equation here. Those are the positives about the platform first. The negatives is that, again, we said on the last slide, you're going to do a strategy first, right? I often joke that you don't buy the furniture before you hire the interior designer. You go out and buy all the furniture and say, okay, this is what I want, and then get the designer to figure out how to make it work. Wouldn't it be better to have the designer figured out and then figure out what the furniture should be? You pointed this out, and you just spoke to this, that if you choose a partner, not a platform first, you sometimes get led into this force fitting function, right?
Yeah.
Where, if you choose the platform, then all of a sudden all roads lead to whatever the platform offers. And the SI says, oh, we can do that. No, that's not possible. Well, not possible because of this platform, or not possible because you don't know how to do it, or what. But you don't want to force a circle into the square and say, well, we're going to do whatever this platform lets us do.
Yep.
And then the last thing is, we said this, platforms are not experts at backend integration, which is often what breaks projects. So if you think you need a strategy and that the integration part on the back end is going to be difficult, then it does kind of argue for a partner first, despite the negatives, right? But this is where we've seen an evolution.
Yeah, no question. And to me, having done both of these paths, by the way, I think that the real answer is sort of in the middle. I don't think you can't select a platform until you have your objectives and strategy defined, including business requirements and other things. There has to be someone that does that. The platform is not going to do it for you. The systems integrator can. However, your best path is often to hire an independent, or if you have internal capabilities or knowledge and expertise yourself, and resources, bandwidth is critical here. Do not shortchange this process. I've made that mistake. If you shortchange it and just go right to a platform, right? Just go to a platform, then you're in for some trouble, because you're not really understanding the roadmap and what you're trying to get in the outcome at the end of the day. I've made the mistake of falling for great sales pitches, right, of platforms, and go, this sounds great, let's do it. And it's early in my career. I had to re-platform twice in a year. It was ridiculous. It was horribly disruptive to the business. It cost me my job ultimately. I mean, it was stupid. You got to set the expectations, including taking the time to do this with people who know what they're doing, right, Andy? You've seen this too, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, if you flip to the next slide, you'll see there are 2 comments on here we found on LinkedIn about this. People replied, and this is Tovi Halbron from Uncork Solutions. He's an SI, so obviously he's going to have an opinion here. But what he said is that the SI is enabled to see around corners, and they should bring more rigor and perspective to the curating vendor process. How often have we heard this? Oh, I chose my vendor and I asked them for a recommendation on a partner.
Right.
And whenever I hear that, I'm really of mixed mind on this one, because on the one hand, yeah, you're going to get somebody that the platforms will work with and they trust. On the other hand, you might be getting somebody who's completely in the tank for that particular vendor.
Right.
And you think they're ever going to tell you that? I mean, if you're just basically getting an implementation partner for the vendor and the vendor's calling all the shots, are you really getting an independent perspective on this? What happens when there's a feature that's not really strong? Do you think that recommended partner is going to go against and challenge the platform? So you're not going to get, objective information here if you're choosing somebody who's really on the payroll.
No question. And Matt gave us, Matt Ekman from Great Northern Distributing gave us a third way. Andy, what's that? Perhaps an option 3. This is what I was saying, right?
Well, we said platform or partner. And Matt said, how about a third option, which is why not engage an independent consultant with relevant experience, somebody unaffiliated with either the SI or the platform, who can support internal stakeholders with readiness assessments, solution discovery, partner evaluation. So in other words, choose somebody who can choose both the partner and the platform for you.
Yes.
Now, I've done this before. You've done this before. In theory, this is the right way to go. When I was at Forrester, people would come to me and say, look, I want your short list of both of these partners and platforms, because I don't trust any of them to tell me the truth for many of the reasons we've outlined here. That's great if you've got the time and the resources to do that. It's a better starting point, but it's not an end point. You still have to move from there to selecting a partner and selecting a platform, right?
Right. So I agree with you. This is the right, ultimately the right way to do this. But there are some systems integrators out there, Andy, that have truly segregated practices. They can, I think, be relatively objective. The objectivity part is the part that I'm most concerned with. If you have a partner and you vet them for that, my opinion, if I had to choose whether I go partner or platform, and that was my only 2 choices, they were binary, I would go partner first still. But the interesting thing is, when we asked the question of our audience back in April 2023, right? This is 2 years ago. We asked in a LinkedIn poll, in B2B e-commerce replatforming, is the partner or the platform more important to success? People said the partner was. So that, they're definitely leaning into that partner approach. And we've heard that.
2-to-1.
Yeah, 2-to-1, 69% to 31%, right? People said that. So the partners was clearly the choice. And that's what I would have guessed. And it's my conventional wisdom too, in the way I would approach it as a VP of ecom. But we just asked the question again, when rolling out a new ecom technology foundation in B2B, should you choose the systems integrator partner or the platform first? Look what it says now. Platform first, 68% versus partner first. People are going right to the platform. It's fascinating.
Flipped.
Yeah, it's completely flipped in 2 years.
Again, we think part of this is that these are people who are more experienced.
Yeah.
And so I think they can take it on. I think there's been perhaps the time in between for the partners has not been good, in that I think people have there have been more partners who've disappointed some of these more experienced people. And by the way, whenever this goes down, we know the group that gets fired. It's always the partner that gets fired,
Right. Well,
because you bought the platform, right? So you have to stay with the platform.
it's a little hard to
So,
fire a platform. It's that's a
yeah, I
multi-year
mean, I'll
contract.
never forget when I did this back at Forrester. I did an evaluation of these partners, which is very hard because there's no product associated
Right.
with it. Like Deloitte versus Accenture versus Capgemini. What's the
Right.
product, right? It's people. And I swear to you, there was one company, it was Harrods. I remember 3 different companies gave me them as a reference. One had worked with them before, one was working with them right now, and one was about to work with them. And I'm like, wait a minute. And it's the same freaking person. I'm like, look, this is insane. But it
Yeah.
illustrates the point, which is that the partners get fired here. And I think you get a lot of people who think, oh, well, there's a problem with this implementation, the partner gets fired. I think there are more problems with implementations now too than there were in the past,
Yeah.
probably because they're more complex, the time constraints are shorter, the budgets are smaller. As a result, more partners are getting fired.
Right.
And I think that could be the reason for this. But I think the number one reason why is because the people who answered our survey have gone through a few more generations of this. And I
Yes.
think, rightly or wrongly, they believe what we said on the first slide, which is they know the requirements. They just need a platform, which I think you and I would both caution them against being overconfident in the area, because there is a lot of value in having somebody who does this all day long. I think the answer is to get a partner who is a straight shooter. And we do know people like that who will tell you the truth, because then you get the best of both worlds. You get the independence from them,
Yep.
and you also get the strategy and the benchmarking. And then you can always work with a platform. But yeah, I'm with you. If I had to choose, in theory, I'm choosing a partner first. And it may not be the last decision I make, but that's where I would start, because it gives you the broadest range of possibilities.
Yep. All right. Well, we got to leave it there. We're over Friday 20. My goodness, Andy, we just might as well call this Friday 30. So, folks, couple quick announcements. Thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed our bit of debate and talk there. But Nexus program is a program we've launched recently, our Master B2B Nexus, which is a personal digital lifeline. We've got quite a few folks now in the program that are joining, and we're excited to provide this now. It's a paid program for practitioners only. And it is, we provide expert advice exclusively for B2B e-com executives, help you mitigate risk in your decision making, connect you directly with peers and expert advisors on key questions. We have exclusive, sort of events and other things. So check it out, Master B2B Nexus on our website. We also have our forum, which you can sign up for right on our website. That's free, and that is for practitioners only. We're getting new members every week on that, so encourage you to join the conversation there. And then finally, want to remind everyone that our Friday 15 is available on podcast form on your favorite podcast service. So look forward to listening to us while you're doing your laundry or running around on your treadmill or whatever you do day to day. Just look for us there, and please give us a rating. We would appreciate that. Of course, only a good one. Anyway, Andy, any final words? Please say no.
No.
Good. What do you know? All right, everyone. Thanks for joining today for Friday 15. We will see you next week.